Welcome to Due Diligence. It's a real estate podcast once again in our North Atlanta studios. And I'm Jason Wieloch, real estate expert Jason Wieloch, here with distinguished
real estate expert,
professor of real estate expert, professor of real estate, Lee Taylor, also an expert. When we're with the Wieloch Group
it's a great
at
week.
Compass.
Great week to be a realtor in
It's
Atlanta.
a great week to be a realtor. It's a great week to be in Atlanta. It's always a great week to be in Atlanta. And we're here every week, most weeks, because we miss a few here and there like last. We just were super busy. And we're here, as always, to bring you all things Atlanta. We are your not only real estate, but Atlanta experts, all of the things that are relevant through these crazy times. And with that come buying and selling decisions for some of you, and we'll help you with those as well.
You know, Jason, it's also a great week to almost a great week to change the name of the podcast, but we'll get to that.
And Lee's doing sort of an early reveal here.
Mm-hmm.
We're not ready to
I'm excited to
tell you about it quite yet, but we will be revealing a rebranded new podcast name, but we're not going anywhere.
That's what we talk about.
It's going to be the same things we talk about. It's just going to be a new name.
We need a marketable brand that can be conceived and conceptualized by the consumer in a greater demand.
You sound like a pre-recorded promotional.
Well, Jason, it's just great to have a spokesperson here to represent the team.
Have you ever heard real estate agents talk like this? Because we say on our website that you never have.
From time to time.
So welcome to the show. And this week we're going to talk about the great American housing boom ahead. When was the last time we had a housing boom, Lee?
Boom, 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 boom. We had a housing boom in the 90s, right?
Yes. I would argue, though, that the last great American housing boom was World War II, post-World War II.
Yeah, post-World War II.
And with some of the things we're seeing written up, we might be on the cusp of another housing boom, and tons of millennials buying homes and making babies after they were staying home quarantined instead of in Europe or Japan this time around.
It is pure geopolitics and demographics, Jason. It is exactly. We were expecting this in the 2030s, and it's coming in the 2020s. The population boom.
It's here, and we're going to need a lot more houses to support it. So we're going to talk about that. But I want to hit a little bit on Atlanta first this week, Lee, because there's a lot of really sad and
demoralized.
As one of my friends who I won't quote, who's a mom, said this week, I am in a really dark place because schools are not starting in classroom. They are starting virtually. And even though they've all now come out and announced we're going to reopen and phase in classroom learning in, it's all conjecture at this point because there's no real dates attached to that. It was just sort of, I think, an appeasing release by all these school systems. But as of now, it's virtual learning for the moment.
Well, it shows which school systems have the best leadership and the ones that will have the best teacher turnout and acceptance, as well as parents and then students are huge stakeholders with a lot of awareness about what's going on. If you're a 10-year-old right now, you know a whole lot more about the world than when I was a 10-year-old, believe me.
I hate the word stakeholder.
Stakeholder is a real word, and it means something in a world like school.
Well, it is something that is upsetting, and the CDC, even Fauci's saying we got to put kids back in schools. So it's not even political at this point. In my opinion.
What did the president say yesterday, Jason?
I don't know. The same thing he says every day?
No, he brought a new one up. He said, it is what it is. So a lot of people felt that was grossly insensitive, and it was. It was just a way he's writing off the rest of his career pretty much from what I can tell when he says stuff like that.
If you're sensitive to Donald Trump still at this point, then I don't know what to tell you.
But the trend we're talking about right now, Jason, is how do schools and homeschooling, concepts of teaching your children at home while you're working, how is that changing the household, Jason?
Well, we know that when
you ain't got no kids though, but I know you know something.
I know what I do know is about fads in real estate and things like COVID bring about. Well, a very smart man in New York disagrees with you.
Mm-hmm. Not a fad; it's a new trend.
It's a trend that is disguised. It's disguised as a trend, but it's a fad.
It's got staying power though.
We're overanalyzing it.
I just want to say this is a really good idea.
Well, the debate is there's so many things that come with COVID with new housing requirements or needs that people perceive as forever things. And this hasn't just happened with COVID. There's always events that can lead to short-term thought that the long term will remain the same forever, right?
Right.
And some things will change from COVID, some things will come and go when COVID goes, right? So one of the things that Leonard Steinberg, who writes for our brokerage in New York every day, said was that the homeschooling room is the new thing that many are asking for. So he went on to write about how he feels if we really are destined to all be at home for the rest of our lives, working 24/7, going to school, it's going to be a really sad world. And I tend to agree. And he's like, his fearless prediction was the homeschool room will be gone like COVID at some point.
Yeah. Well, I think here's another concept I heard yesterday on a podcast. Boom. I haven't heard. Well, first of all, I heard about the Zoom room, and the Zoom room is just this concept of having a nice wall to do a Zoom call, but it's starting to become something that is needed, and you can package it and stage it. You really can.
The Zoom room has replaced the panic room.
It has. And there's other, what are some other rooms that, the game room and certain things like that you're really seeing truly are becoming part of people's houses.
And maybe, look, I think there's an argument that the extra office can remain because there will be, I think, more people working from home a couple days. I think the idea of everyone working home, we've talked about this 5 days a week, isn't good. And companies are all, now that companies are compiling data on people working at home for months on end, at the beginning, it seemed like, you're reading the Wall Street Journal talking about this glorious future of virtual working. But now what they're seeing is it's harder to problem solve in virtual spaces all the time. Collaboration isn't as good. There is an element there that companies are seeing that isn't positive, even though they did see some positives. So I think we're looking at a blended future where the home office will remain for those couple days a week somebody is home.
Yeah, I think it needs to be nimble, highly led companies. And in a minute, we'll talk about high tech and technology jobs here in Atlanta. But I'll say one thing. One thing that is this was a really cool concept I heard yesterday on a podcast. I don't remember which one it was. They said it's not about working from home. It's about living while you're at work. Because right now people are at work at home, and some of them are working much longer hours than they normally would. Now, that hour may not be, if you have a child at home and you're distracted by them for 20 minutes, then you've lost 20 minutes of your hour.
Okay, well.
But they're working 11 hours at 40 minutes per hour or something like that.
Right.
12 hours at 40 minutes per hour.
But it's not, so we're getting off into like all kinds of, quality of life things work. But the bottom line is, I think the home office will remain, and I think the homeschool room will not. Children are going to ultimately need to be in school. And so I am with Leonard Steinberg about that. And I'm sorry to all my friends out there who are parents who are going to have to homeschool for a while that can't afford alternatives, because most people cannot.
Right. And it's a matter of the boldness of the teacher. I saw a New York nurse wrote an article today that said, hey, teachers, we had to go to work. You need to go to work too. So it's a different thing. It's really different.
All right. Moving on. Technology jobs. Lee, let's touch on that before we get to our meaty topic for the day.
Yeah. So right here in
he's got his business chronicle.
Little hands is the Atlanta Business Chronicle. Atlanta's technology sector continued to expand, adding almost 32,000 jobs in 5 years. And what it basically says here is that we stood out in several key areas. One, we were one of the most affordable cities for tech workers. Over an entire year, the cost of renting an apartment here stood at $15,178. Meanwhile, Atlanta technology wage averaged $96,674. Now, if you have $96,674 and you're living in Atlanta, you might as well try to purchase something right now.
And because of the amount, and you're saying because the tech jobs are going to bring higher income jobs or have,
Indeed.
Which will continue to promote the rise in prices.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. Tech employment has shown it can withstand economic shocks. This is by...
Oh, yeah, I can. Look at the tech stocks right now.
For example, in the 2008-2010 recession, tech employment declined by 0.5%, while overall U.S. employment registered a 5.5% drop. That's significant. That's 10% or less than typical employment. So
Well,
And we're a technology company at Compass.
People don't realize that we're top 5 in the country for tech talent.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it says here, high rate of education attainment, ranking number 6 overall in the U.S., with just over 53% of the population of Atlanta having a bachelor's degree.
Wow, that is.
Yeah.
Do you know the numbers nationally for percentage of people with bachelor's degrees? It's about 1 in 4.
Wow.
Like, and that was 10 years ago that stat exists. I don't know what it is today, but it is significantly less. Wow. I didn't
Atlanta
realize
is
that.
number 9 out of the 50 North American markets on the Tech Talent Scorecard from the CBRE Group. That's a
CBRE is the commercial real estate.
Commercial real estate. The millennial population in Atlanta, aged 22 to 36, of which you are a member, Jason Wieloch, has increased by 10% since 2013. Atlanta's tech talent labor pool is the 9th largest nationally, with 146,720 workers. Imagine if we just picked up like 140 of those, Jason, as clients. That's 1%.
If you're in technology and want to live somewhere, call us.
Right, yeah. That amounts to just over 5% of the overall Atlanta workforce, significantly higher than the national average of 3.7%.
I think that, look, folks, we are certainly champions for Atlanta, because if we weren't, why the hell would we be living and selling here? So, but here's the thing. We don't have to fluff it. The reality is our job market is robust. And we always said that if the economy took a hit, Atlanta would be more resilient than the rest of the country. And those predictions, listen, we're wrong plenty of the time, but that prediction has held up. Look how we have done during COVID. Some of that's political, but I think the type and quality and diversity of jobs in this city is as good as anywhere.
Right. And if you imagine the Fortune 500 companies that are housed here and their large IT departments are probably included in this technology employment, but a significant base of the technology employment is just serving as third-party service the technology firms of this city.
Imagine
not technology firms, the leading firms of this city, from UPS to Coca-Cola to Delta to
Home Depot.
To Home Depot, right?
Imagine if we'd gotten
to
Amazon.
King of Pops. My favorite brand in the city.
King of Pops. That's not a Fortune 500, though.
No, but they damn well should be. And the King of Crops. Do you know about the King of Crops?
No.
They have a big farm out in Douglasville. They bought a big old nursery out in Douglasville. Now they grow all their own organic food. And they're a wholesaler. They have vertical economy came out of a little popsicle stand 12 years ago. Isn't that cool? Isn't that amazing?
Things that you learn about popsicle stands that you never knew.
But I just think there's so much technology employment, and it's based on these great thriving brands we have in our city.
Well, folks, I'll tell you what, this is really exciting to know, because not only is the technology job market going to fuel the next decade in Atlanta, the entire country, along with Atlanta, is going to couple that with what might be the next great American housing boom. And it's not fluff, folks, because we for years have already been in a housing shortage. We now, and by the way, the residential housing market is a $35 trillion industry. I don't know if you knew that. Such a significant part of the economy to begin with. But if you look at the numbers, Americans looking to refinance their mortgages this last month was 111%, which is going to lower their rates and make them more flush with money, which leads them to making better buy or probably more expensive buying decisions later as they save. And then sales surged 55% nationally.
Now, year over year or month over month?
You know what? It doesn't say.
I stumped him.
It doesn't. Oh, so I want to say year over year. Usually these statistics are year over year.
It's a big, powerful stat.
You know what? I doubt it's, I bet you it's not, because of the pause.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assume Forbes doesn't, they don't qualify this, but I imagine some of that is because the market sort of paused.
Yeah, it did.
But that is still.
That's huge.
That's huge. And a lot of it's coupled with interest rates. The demand for new construction was even more squashed by the fact that it had to pause briefly as well. And now we're in a lumber shortage.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with COVID, you've got this perfect storm in this country. COVID has created spatial awareness like never before. People are thinking about their homes and where they want to live. It's funny, we got clients calling up that have only been in their homes a year or two. Like, we want to move. And usually people don't do it that fast, but it's sort of redefining. And then you've got the millennials. You couple that with millennials coming into the market, and there's going to be tens of millions of people coming of age in my generation with money who want to buy homes. And many of them will have inherited that money from mom and dad at some point, whether it be an early inheritance or
a gift,
whatever. So what does that mean, folks?
I'd say, what does it mean, folks? You want me
what
to
does
tip
it
that
mean,
off?
Lee?
What does it mean, LT? It means that, you mentioned a gift. One of the great ways to get a down payment started is to get a gift from a family member. If you can obtain that in 2020 and use that at today's interest rates, then take advantage of the opportunity that may be there among a family member who is gifting some of their wealth. I would look into that immediately if you're a first-time buyer, or even someone who wants to make a move up into a perfect neighborhood right now. That's one. Second one would be to look into down payment assistance. I think the federal government is in a really powerful largesse. I use it again near 4 podcasts ago. I use the word largesse. It's the government giving you money. And down payment assistance from HUD, Housing and Urban Development, down to the local housing authorities is a really, really powerful way to get sometimes $25,000, $30,000 for down payment assistance. You can do that here in Atlanta. If you have any inquiries about it, I'm a pretty good expert on it. So is Libby Quiner from Movement Mortgage. And Jason may know a thing or two about it, but it is a powerful way to look at the market right now. And you should be getting qualified for that if you want to take advantage of these rates in the next 3 to 6 months. The next 3 to 6 months, we're going to see more inventory.
We may see more
houses.
inventory.
It's going to be relatively swallowed up at the same fast pace that it's come on the market in the past 4 months.
Because we have tons of young people that are just entering the market, and this thing just kind of held back that from bursting, right? It's funny, as I read this article further, it talks about how if you're a home builder, the coming years, you're going to make a ton of money.
You are, yeah. I think home builders should absolutely.
We need so many more houses that are being put on the ground.
A well-capitalized builder should just make money hand over fist and plan how many they can build every single year.
There's just not enough homes.
There's just not enough opportunity. We need dirt and houses
supply
and
demand, baby.
Yeah, and you talk about the suburban boom, and you read about it in the media, and they'll say that everyone's moving from the big cities. Not Atlanta, guys. Atlanta's too strong and too cool and too beltline, baby.
And you know what? It's so funny. I used to read these articles about millennial homeownership is a thing of the past. It's
all the millennials.
Remember they used to write about that, like, because we're so transient and we just don't want to be tied somewhere. And I'm like, duh, because we're 25 and not getting married to our college sweethearts like y'all. Okay, so we actually took some time to go travel the world, maybe party a little bit here and there.
Hey man, we partied too, buddy.
Yeah, you just did it younger. And you know what? Then we got to 30 and we said, guess what? We're successful too. You didn't completely screw us up, mom and dad. Give me that gift and I want to buy a home.
Right.
Or I was very successful and I've got a bunch of money in the bank because the stock market's been treating my my brokerage accounts so well the last 5 years.
Right.
It's a lot of my friends have made a ton of money that have saved and put it in the stock market the last few years. And it's like they got
It's time for them, and I'll just say to all of them, I'm not your financial advisor. However, after being through this since what they call Black Tuesday or something back in 1987, October of 87 was the first time I remember
savings and loan, right?
Yeah, this was a lot having to do with the savings and loan crisis. And I asked my friend who worked on Wall Street, he had just graduated from Furman. I had no idea what had happened significantly. However, it's those kind of cataclysmic events that just are a blip on the radar compared to the Great Depression. And a lot of what could happen in the future would be magnitudinous, like the Great Depression. 50-something% drops in the value of corporations and stocks as they are valued is one of the scary things people should be watching out for. That's why Warren Buffett's going to cash.
Oh, man. You had to hit the American housing boom with that.
No, the boom that's what it's all about. You've got an able-bodied investment in real estate, something that's why Invitation Homes, backed by Blackstone, bought at $150 million per week in 2012 and 2013. They bought so many American houses and they're holding on to them.
It's also why so many people need to not buy into only being in the stock market or only being in real estate.
Yeah.
It's good to diversify. Money in, look, real estate is consistently a more conservative investment, really, than the stock market,
really
minus 2008, because that was the only economic downfall ever driven by housing.
But dollar for dollar, month for month, Atlanta and Georgia real estate is cheaper to own and pay taxes and be an operator of than it is to be a tenant. It has been for decades, and it beats San Francisco and Chicago and New York and you name it, New Orleans probably.
Well, on that note, Lee, I'm going to move us towards the end of our podcast.
Extended due diligence?
Well, extended due diligence may be dying soon, but we will do extended due diligence. And I'll add a couple thoughts based on this conversation. First of all, if you already own a home and you're looking to invest, it's a great time to think about buying a rental property and building a portfolio in that space. And we can teach you and show you how to do that effectively. And it's a good way to not put all your eggs in one basket, like your primary. And it's more fruitful than your primary because you can not only capture the appreciation, you can get monthly cash flow if done correctly. So at the rates that where they're at, you can really, really maximize.
Yeah, you can.
Because guess what? Rental rates haven't gone down. No. So you want to talk about a great time to revisit that and get a spread on your money? This is it. And then lastly, we know people everywhere. And I want to remind everyone, like we do every week, that we have the most insane connections across the country in real estate. The very best, the very brightest.
They're insane.
They're crazy. No, they're whack jobs. No. I'll tell you a personal story. My friend Joe Romano, he's a great home builder here in Atlanta. He's in New York on vacation with his family this week. And he calls me because he's originally from there. And he's had this great idea about buying an old apartment on the Upper East Side and renovating it, getting a good deal on a New York apartment and renovating it and keeping it as an investment. Well, guess what? It's a great time to invest in New York.
It is.
And there's a lot of dated property in New York on that Upper East Side, an aging population. So he called me and goes, who you got that can show me a property? Well, I called my guy, Mike Sandak, who we had on the show.
We did.
Him and Mike Sandak are out looking at apartments today. He didn't have to go on Zillow or Street Easy, as their site is, and pick an agent who'd been advertising or paying money to be in ad space. I got him a great agent that I know personally, that I've split cocktails with at real estate events and hung out with.
Well,
he knows his market.
You tell them where they need to go is Sutton Place, baby. Go to Sutton Place, up on the Upper East Side, just south.
What's Sutton Place?
So it's just a nice exclusive building. It's an exclusive building.
Well,
that's what Lee Taylor says.
I'm going to trust Mike Sandak.
Probably built in the 40s, 50s. It's slick.
Famous
people live in it.
Long story short, Lee, we can help you here in Atlanta if you're thinking about making a move, and we can help you anywhere in the lower 48.
Indeed.
And folks, that's it for this week on Due Diligence, maybe retiring Due Diligence in lieu of a new exciting name in the coming days, and we'll let you know about it. But we'll still be at the same place on your podcast app, and you'll be at our website, twgatlanta.com. And in the meantime, we look forward to seeing you in the new improved Due Diligence.
Whatever it's going to be called.
Talk to you later.
All right, bye.